welcome to the course of urban planning. Continuing with the previous section, now we are going to discuss the planning process at the district level for the regional plan. So, in India, planning process for administrative areas are equal to or bigger than the district has been attempted. In the regional planning, we see that decentralized, integrated and bottom-up planning approach is adopted. The approach and methodology by the states vary by size, structure and hierarchy of their settlement in the region. For example, the state of Kerala has provision for DPC and MPC. Its methodology of district plan preparation provides a decentralized planning process by initiating preparation of an integrated district development plan along with the local development plans for every local government in the district in an integrated manner. The integrated district development plan aims for integrated draft development plan with due regards to common interest of panchayats and municipalities to plan for spatial and sharing of resources both natural and man-made. The IDDP includes planning of spatial areas such as tribal areas, coastal areas, economically backward areas, areas for establishment of new towns. Also, there are provision of joint area planning in the case the area comprises more than one municipal corporation, municipal council, town panchayats or village panchayat either in full or in part. Draft IDDP is prepared for the district incorporating suggestions of LSGs. The draft IDDP prepared act as an input for the identification of the development issues and setting up of development goals and objectives of each LSG and thus becomes the frame within which the draft LDPs are prepared. Based on the suggestions and proposals of the draft LDPs, the draft IDDP is modified and finalized. Once the draft IDDP is approved by the DPC and sanctioned by the state government, the draft LDPs shall be modified and finalized. In case of Goa Regional Plan 2021, we see that the basic approach for preparation of Goa Regional Plan was protection of environmentally sensitive area of the state by introducing eco-sensitive zones and planning details at village panchayat level. The regional plan gives a micro-level planning of the state of Goa with the village panchayats as the planning units. Multiple level consultative process was undertaken in the preparation of the plan. A decentralized approach was adopted in which a vision document was prepared for the state and was shared with the local bodies or the villages. Plan prepared at the grassroots level were compiled at higher levels to prepare draft state regional plan. Inclusiveness in the process was attained through multiple rounds of public participation. Looking into the institutional setup of Goa, we see that in order to facilitate the process of regional planning, three-tier structure was prepared. At the highest level was the state level committee. At the intermediate level was the Taluka task force, which was Taluka level technical committee. And at the lowest level was the village panchayat, that was local body level team or the committee. With this three-tier, Goa prepared its regional plan. Further, we see the detail about how transit-oriented development are done at the regional level. In India, the concept of TOD, transit-oriented development, to plan and develop cities or region have been used in various cities. Some of the examples include National Capital Region, Delhi, Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority, ORDA, Hyderabad Metropolitan Area. In the National Capital Region, transportation options such as metro rail, ring railway, ring road have been used to guide the development. Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority, ORDA, has developed BRTS corridor, ring road to guide development along the transportation corridors. Hyderabad Metropolitan Development Authority has used transit-oriented development plan for city using metro corridors, MMTS, potential BRTS, LRT and outer ring road. They have developed transit-oriented development plan to develop the metropolitan area. HMDA conceived transit-oriented development in compatibility with the master plan. Integrated transit network was proposed with the focus to integrate employment generating nodes with transit network. Influence zone along the transit network were identified and detailed development control rules, FAR and land use in such areas were decided. We look at the approach and methodology which they adopted. Further, we see here that the first step was to review the TOD practices. Further, we see they did the site assessment as well as at the same time they dealt with market assessment. Based on this, they worked out the detailed guidelines and strategic action plan. In this, while working out the detailed guidelines and strategic action plan, stakeholders consultation was taken into consideration. Based on all these things, site assessment, market assessment, detailed guidelines and strategic action plan and stakeholders consultation, the concept of TOD plan was prepared. Based on this concept of TOD plan, land parcel development plans were prepared, the LPD plans. These LPD plans had detailed layout plan, they had infrastructure services, structuring and implementation details. Detailed layout plan included layout plan, overall land use distribution, area under each, plot coverage, FAR, all these details. Percentage sellable area under each use was also specified. Within the infrastructure services, demand estimate of physical infrastructure was done. Within the structuring and implementation details, financial analysis, financing options and key inputs were specified. All cost and revenue assumptions, financial indicators, risk and sensitivity analysis was performed. With all these land parcel development plan, project development on public-private partnership mode was prepared and this was to be taken up as the transaction advisory. This information has been taken from Hyderabad Metropolitan Development Authority. So, we see that this was the approach which they adopted for preparing the transit-oriented development plan. With this transit-oriented development plan, Hyderabad Metropolitan Region could achieve the following specific things through its intervention. These were mixed land use zoning, they were able to achieve mixed land use zoning, incentivized higher density development, they were able to achieve expedited building permits, further were able to bring in decreasing parking requirements, address the affordable housing, they could deal with integration of employment and transit. Further, they provided alternatives to the personalized vehicle ownership. So, these were the achievements which Hyderabad Metropolitan Region could make through the transit-oriented development plan. Now, we will look into the investment planning region. Government of India has started the process of developing investment zones across the country. As we had seen in the beginning, the DMIC, Chennai-Bangalore Economic Corridor and Bangalore-Mumbai Economic Corridor are examples of such efforts. While these investment zones are interstate and backed by central government, states have also started envisaging such investment regions and have brought legislation to support the same. So, now we see that these regional plans are though it involves a lot of other states, but then states have also started taking an initiative and have started bringing in legislations aligned with such kind of development. Here we see with the case example, the state of Gujarat has enacted Special Investment Region SIR Act 2009. The act is an initiative to develop investment zones and encourage industrial activities in the state. Under this act, minimum area requirement for an SIR is 100 square kilometer. 40% of the area of such zones shall be for industrial activities. This is an example of intra-state investment region, which can be inter-district or intra-district. As we had seen in the earlier cases, different kind of regional planning areas. While planning for investment region, strategic decisions making process is required for delineating the region's boundary, identifying the region for potential to attract investment, and for leading the economic development. This is particularly important when investment planning region are identified or planning is prepared, because earlier, as we saw in the state or the district, we have identified boundaries, administrative boundaries, which are already marked. But these boundaries have to be delineated in case of investment planning regions. So, as per the recommendation in the URDPFI guidelines, the delineation of investment region should follow following steps. First, it has to identify infrastructure gap and plan for providing last mile connectivity either at the regional or sub-regional level as the case may be. Further identification of main thrust sector for investment has to be done. Likewise, identification of growth drivers and potential growth centers is required. Further, market assessment is required, all primary, secondary and tertiary nature. Finally, pre-feasibility of the proposals have to be checked while looking for the delineation of the investment region. Based on the evaluation of the resources, thrust areas should be identified for the region's economic development and overcome the bottlenecks. For such regions to be investment friendly, market analysis techniques to arrive at the viability of the region in terms of generating investment and feasibility of thrust areas in terms of technicality. For Indian investment, regions to compete in the international market and attract foreign investment, the state-of-art infrastructure facilities must be developed rapidly. With this vision, the economic profile of the region should be envisaged and realistic investment goals should be targeted. At the given stage of investment, regional planning, a broad spatial plan along with indicative land use shall be proposed for conceptualizing the region as a whole. Here, as planners must pay attention to major roads, trunk infrastructure, tapping points for power, water and careful modifying local drainage pattern. The approach of the plan preparation should be followed by encapsulating the vision for the investment region, which should become the part and parcel or the basis for preparation of the perspective plan for the region. Now we will look at various aspects of investment regional planning. Here we see what all consideration elements are essential for working out the investment region plan. As per the recommendation in URDPFI guidelines, the planning process should include the following key elements essential to promote growth and balanced development of the region, namely the policy in relation to land use and allocation of land for different uses, identification of potential nodes and counter magnets if counter magnets are required for decongestion for the future and proposals for development. Integrated transport policy, administration policy, law and order machinery. Plan for regional infrastructure linkages, a dedicated and sustainable connectivity across the corridor and the hinterland. Further, policy for economic development has to be considered. Fund flow for development has to be seen. Indication of the area which require immediate development as priority areas. Roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders. Housing and shelter development. Furthermore, protection of environmentally and ecologically sensitive areas and conservation of heritage has to be seen. Sustainable development of resources including agriculture and rural development has to be considered. The perspective plan should define the influence zone of the corridor or define the rationality of selection in case of a node. Finally, monitoring systems and social audit mechanism to ensure effective implementation of the plan has to be prepared. Moving on, we will now see how the region has to be delineated. So, we are going to look at the criteria for delineation of the region. Regions can be classified based on many criteria. Relevant parameters should be selected for delineation purpose, and then the process require iterative approach. You may go forth and backward for identifying all the parameters which are required for the delineation process. Here some of the parameters are identified. However, they are not an elaborate list, but they do guide us what kind of parameters have to be used. So, we see environmental and land suitability. We have to see whether it is environmentally suitable, land is suitable for the purpose or not. And then the indicators which are used for this purpose include soil, cover and fertility, topography, geology, geomorphology, lithology and drainage, surface water body and groundwater table, green and forest cover, buffer area, agriculture cover and intensity of production, hazardous zone, other environmentally sensitive areas. The other parameter also include demographic and quality of life. This would have indicators: population growth rate, percentage increase in population, urbanism, percentage of urban population to the total population, migration, how is the migration in the region, number of persons migrating to the nodal point, looking at the density, how is the density, population per hectare, and then looking at the aspect of literacy. We may also consider other socio-economic aspects. The other parameter which we also see is flows. We see how goods, volume of goods traffic are there, supply of raw material, sale of finished goods, supply of possible goods like vegetables, milk, egg, meat, etc. People, passenger traffic, what kind of floating population is there, what kind of labor supply is there, what kind of cultural affinity, shopping, major recreational facilities are there. May look into finance, banking and other facilities. We would also look into infrastructure links, supply and management of services such as water supply, wastewater, solid waste treatment with focus on recycling and reuse. Likewise, we will look into drainage channels, irrigation channels, powerhouse and so on. For this flow, we may also look into information, location of industries, movement of students and scholars, telephone calls and so on. The other parameter, important parameter which we may look into is economic and investments. The indicator may include, for economic purpose, local economic activity, wholesale trade, major existing developments, and large investment proposal for development in the area. What is the workers' composition, percentage of non-agriculture workers to the total workers, and how is the land ownership and land use in the region. The indicators might also have other parameters which may include contiguity of area, integrated development, how other things have been integrated here, adjustment of boundaries with other planning areas, manageable size of the region from planning point of view. For this delineation purpose, it is also recommended that the planning region should have a nodal point, as we have already seen what the nodal points are. So, these nodal points either are developed or developable to satisfy the organizational need of the region. The homogeneous region identified should be adjusted to the nearest administrative boundary, such as village boundary, taluka or district. Moving on to next, we will now look at spatial area planning regions. Let us first try to understand what are these spatial area planning. Spatial area development planning implies prudent use of all the available resources to ensure optimum and sustained development of the region, towards improving quality of life of the people and to meet growing demands of increasing population. It is also imperative to maintain the fragile balance between development and conservation practices through identification of the problem areas and preparation of location specific development plans. Spatial area would also include eco-sensitive areas. And let us see what are eco-sensitive areas. Eco-sensitive areas is a designation provided to area which has very diverse yet fragile ecosystem. For example, Western Ghat is one of the ecologically sensitive area in the country. The Government of India had taken a step to conserve and develop this region sustainably. For this, Government of India constituted Western Ghats Ecological Expert Panel, which submitted its report in the year 2011. Western Ghat is a region which is defined by its geological characteristic, biological landscape, richness in flora fauna species, spatial heterogeneity, high conservation value and ecological sensitivity. Human activities had deteriorating ecological impacts on the region, due to which committee was constituted to give recommendations for its conservation. We will now look into socio-economic sensitive areas. These are areas which lack amenities due to an imbalance in the economic development of the region or nearby region and standard of living of the residing population. Such areas also encounter high rate of social stresses. There are culturally sensitive areas like tribal areas which lack even the basic social amenities of health and education, as mostly they are not covered in the jurisdictional areas of the administrative offices. For example, Schedule 6 of Constitution of India gives the provision for the tribal areas in the northeastern east states of India. This schedule gives provision for the administration of tribal areas in the state of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. In such cases, planning and land management is not directly under the control of the state, but rests with the Autonomous District Council formed in the district as per the Constitution. The Regional Council of an autonomous region or District Council for an autonomous district of these states have the power to make laws with respect to the allotment, occupation or use, or setting apart of land other than any land which is reserved forest for the purpose of agriculture or grazing or for residential or other non-agriculture purposes, or for any other purpose likely to promote the interest of the inhabitants of any village or town. So, this was about the sensitive areas. Now, pertaining to regional planning, we are going to see different kind of land use classification, which is usually done when we prepare the plan and prepare the maps for it. So, we identify different classifications. We will not get into the details of it, but the different classifications which are done are urbanizable zone. So, we identify whether the zone can be urbanized or not. Industrial zone, transport and communication zone, primary activity zone. We also demarcate open area zone, protected and eco-sensitive zone and special area zones. So, these are the land use classification which has several intermediate demarcation also. So, these are generally used as for indicating the various land use classification in the regional planning. So, summarizing, we have seen in this section planning process at the different regional planning level, where we saw how at the district level it is done, how it is done for metropolitan area, we saw how it is done for sensitive areas, special investment areas as well. We also saw how plans are prepared for transit oriented development. We also looked into criteria for delineation of the region. Further, we looked into special area planning regions, and lastly, we looked into land use classification. These are the references used. Our coverage was limited with the scope to make you aware of the topic. There are enormous readings and movies available to explore. Few are suggested here. This is not an extensive list. You may feel free to suggest more from your experience. Please feel free to ask questions. Let us know about your concerns you have. Do share your opinion, experiences, and suggestions. Looking forward to interacting and co-learning with you while exploring cities and urban planning. That's all. Thank you.